My wife told me she slept with someone last night. I just said, congrats. I never thought I'd be congratulating my wife on sleeping with someone else. But there I was, smiling at her across our kitchen table while my heart shattered into a million pieces. What she told me next would change everything, and not in the way you might think. 3 years ago, Amber and I were that couple everyone envied. High school sweethearts who actually made it work. But sometimes life throws you curveballs that even the strongest relationships can't dodge. Jake, we need to talk, she said that fateful morning, her eyes puffy from what looked like a sleepless night. I slept with someone last night. The world stopped. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but only one word escaped: congrats. Why would I say that? Because the truth behind her confession was something I never saw coming. 6 months earlier, our perfect life imploded when Dr. Reynolds delivered the news that turned our world upside down. The cancer is aggressive, he said, his voice clinical but kind. We need to start treatment immediately. Amber, my vibrant, unstoppable wife, suddenly faced a battle neither of us was prepared for. The chemo ravaged her body, stealing her energy, her hair, and eventually, her ability to sleep. Insomnia became her constant companion, sometimes keeping her awake for days at a stretch. I feel like a zombie, she confessed one night, tears streaming down her face. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I held her as she cried, feeling utterly helpless. What kind of husband couldn't even help his wife sleep? That's when Dr. Mitchell, her oncologist, suggested a clinical trial. It's experimental, she warned, but it's showing promising results for cancer patients with severe insomnia. The catch? The treatment required overnight monitoring in a sleep lab. Amber would be hooked up to machines while specialists observed her brain patterns as she slept, if she could sleep at all. I slept, Jake, Amber continued that morning, her eyes suddenly bright with something I hadn't seen in months: hope. 8 full hours. No nightmares, no waking up gasping for breath. Just sleep. That's when I understood. That someone she'd slept with was the sleep technician who had monitored her during the trial. The technician, Mark, said my brain waves were normal for the first time since starting chemo, she explained, her voice gaining strength with each word. They think the treatment is working. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I reached across the table and took her hands in mine. That's the best news I've heard in months. But our journey was far from over. The experimental treatment required weekly overnight sessions, and insurance wouldn't cover a dime of it. We were already drowning in medical bills, and I had no idea how we'd afford this new lifeline. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. I listed my prized '67 Mustang, the car my grandfather had left me, the one thing I'd sworn I'd never sell, on an auction site. You can't, Amber protested when she found out. That car is your history, your connection to your grandpa. I just shook my head. It's just metal and rubber, babe. You're my future. 3 months later, Amber walked into our bedroom with an envelope in her hand and tears in her eyes. What's wrong? I asked, immediately fearing the worst. She handed me the envelope without a word. Inside was a medical report with one line highlighted: no evidence of disease. The treatment had worked. The cancer was in remission, and the sleep therapy had restored her ability to rest naturally. My wife was coming back to me, one peaceful night at a time. That evening, as we sat on our porch swing watching the sunset, Amber leaned her head against my shoulder. You know what I realized today, she whispered. What's that? When everything was falling apart, you never did. Not once. I kissed the top of her head, now covered in soft fuzz that promised to become the golden waves I'd fallen in love with years ago. That's what you do when you love someone. You hold on tight when the ride gets rough. Today marks 1 year in remission. Last night, Amber slept 8 hours without any medication or monitoring for the first time since her diagnosis. This morning, I found her in the driveway, staring at something in disbelief. There, gleaming in the morning sun, was my grandfather's Mustang. "How?" she gasped. I shrugged. Turns out the guy who bought it had a wife who beat cancer too. When I reached out to see if he'd consider selling it back someday, he drove it here himself. Said some things are more important than money. Life isn't perfect. We still have medical bills. Amber still has regular checkups that fill us both with anxiety. But we've learned that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the most beautiful dawns. If you're going through your own storm right now, remember this: it's not about weathering it alone, it's about finding someone who'll hold the umbrella with you, even when it feels like the rain will never stop. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us of what truly matters in life. I'd love to know which country you're watching from. Drop it in the comments below and let me know if you've ever had someone stand by you through your darkest times.